Next, the crash that killed a race car driver in Canandaigua.
What the sheriff has decided about criminal charges in the case.
And what driver Tony Stewart is saying about the fatal crash.
Live team coverage from Canandaigua and Watkins Glen next on 13 Wham News.
Jeep is a proud sponsor of Bill's training camp coverage.
At Upstate Auto Credit, we've got the cars, hundreds of them. We've got lots of lenders with the power to approve. If your credit score is low, come to Upstate Auto.
From your breaking news and weather authority, this is 13 Wham News at 6 in high definition.
Death on the track.
Oh, he hit him!
NASCAR legend Tony Stewart strikes and kills a competitor who approached him on foot on a Canandaigua racetrack.
Tony Stewart just hit that guy.
What preceded the crash and where the investigation goes from here. Good evening. At this point, it does not appear Tony Stewart will face any criminal charges.
The Ontario County Sheriff this afternoon said it does not appear there was criminal intent in the crash that killed driver Kevin Ward.
13 Wham has team coverage tonight on all of this. We are going to begin with Mike Calana and the video that helped the sheriff make his decision.
This was the feature event at Canandaigua Motorsports Park last night. A group of the regulars in their sprint cars, joined by the NASCAR star on the track, Tony Stewart, driving the number 14 car. Kevin Ward Jr. is in the number 13 car. Now, we'll show you the video. First part of the video you want to focus on is the wreck. Stewart does appear to run Ward's car into the wall. That would knock Ward out of the race. Now, the video here does focus on the car, disabled. Now, at this point, the rest of the cars, including Stewart, circle the track on a caution flag where they stay in position and slow down. Here is the key. Ward gets out of his vehicle at this point and goes to the part of the track where the cars will be coming. Now, we do not show you the actual impact, but the video clearly shows Stewart's car making contact with Kevin Ward. He has thrown a distance, what has been approximated to be 15 to 20 feet. Moments later, emergency personnel tend to Ward on the track. He later died at the hospital. Stewart, we are told by reliable witnesses, drove through the pits and right to his car's trailer, where he was later met by authorities. Today, Stewart issued a statement saying there aren't words to describe the sadness I feel about the accident that took the life of Kevin Ward Jr. It's a very emotional time for all involved. It's the reason I've decided not to participate in today's race at Watkins Glen. My thoughts and prayers with his family, friends, and everyone affected by this tragedy. This occurred late last night, and his decision to drop out of the race happened about 2 hours before they were scheduled to start at Watkins Glen.
And obviously people waiting to hear those words from Tony Stewart today.
Yet we are also hearing from the family of Kevin Ward Jr. They live north of Utica in Port Leyden. In a statement, the family says, quote, "We appreciate the prayers and support we are receiving from the community, but we need time to grieve and wrap our heads around all of this." The Ontario County Sheriff is asking anyone who may have witnessed the crash or videotaped it to call his office.
And while his investigation is not over, the sheriff just a few hours ago said there is no evidence that points to criminal intent. Jennifer Lee joining us now to tell us what is next in the investigation. Jennifer?
Late this afternoon, Sheriff Phil Pavro, told us that at this point there is no evidence indicating criminal intent from anyone who was here at the racetrack last night, but his investigators are still reconstructing that crash scene here. We're told that the race cars were traveling between 30 to 35 miles per hour. They were racing on a dirt track that was muddy at night, so lighting and visibility are also factors being looked at by investigators. The sheriff says his team is bringing in racing experts to offer their perspective to the investigation.
Individuals that know this type of racing from a long-time professional standpoint and can assist with a forensic analysis of the entire event. We're looking at clothing, we're looking at lighting, we're looking for eyewitnesses that were working, we're looking for any information now that will assist us in this investigation.
So while the sheriff says that he does not see any criminal intent at this point, this investigation is far from over. Also very important to note, the sheriff told us that the NASCAR driver, Tony Stewart, is fully cooperating with investigators. Don and Jenny.
All right. Hey, thank you, Jennifer. And again, we remind you, any potential criminal charges now would be at the decision of the Ontario County District Attorney, Mike Tantillo. The sheriff said the DA is supporting this investigation and is interested in its findings. We did call the DA's office today, and we're told he is unavailable.
In Canandaigua, there's a makeshift memorial at the scene of the crash. Fans today placed flowers at the fence outside the speedway. Our news crew saw others briefly gather, but most declining to speak about the crash. One man who was in that race last night walked onto the track to get a closer look at the actual site. Tony Stewart was a big draw for the fans who came out in Canandaigua, and Cody Combs spoke with a fan who was there and describes the mood, Cody, as intense. All right, we apologize for that. We had Cody. He's going to talk to us about the fans and the atmosphere at the race that night. They were describing it as frustrating and intense.
And I think what we have seen so far today for both the drivers involved in this, a lot of people mixed emotions on Tony Stewart, saying, why does this always have to happen to him? Other people holding him a little more accountable. So it's interesting to hear from both sides of this, talking about both of the drivers involved. And we'll get back to Cody as soon as we can to bring that to a conclusion for us.
I think now we're going to hear from someone who witnessed the crash, a young person named Kyle Young.
Tony and Kevin were racing very, very hard with each other. The two of them got close. They made contact, and Kevin's car crashed into the outside wall. Soon after it came to a stop, Kevin got out of his car, visibly frustrated with Tony at the incident, waited for Tony's car to come around to show some sort of displeasure, either to point at him or whatever. And when Tony's car came around, it struck Kevin, and he was hit by the car and ended up lying motionless in turn two after being struck.
And we do know, too, that Cody spoke with one of the racers off camera as well from last night, that when he stopped at the track today, as many did, to reflect, calling it a terrible tragedy, but one that no one could have avoided. He says, at least the one witness, that if someone would walk down the track like that.
And the sheriff seems to agree with that witness account.
Yeah. Well, this crash came just hours before Tony Stewart was set to race at Watkins Glen today.
Stewart pulled out 2 hours before it began. Rachel Glazer is here now with a fan, and some of them reacting to the crash last night. Rachel?
Don and Jenny, this was the whole reason Tony Stewart was even in the state, but what happened last night on that small dirt track in Canandaigua really cast a shadow over the big event here in Watkins Glen. Stewart's 14 car noticeably absent from the track today. Not a lot of his fans here, but just walking through the crowd, he was the one driver that everyone was talking about. Opinions really split on whether he intentionally sped up to the other driver or if he simply couldn't see him.
It was really something. Poor Tony Stewart again. You know, it's such a shame because he's had so much bad luck. Shouldn't have been out on the track. No. That'll be Tony's savior that he's not on the track, or he wasn't supposed to be on the track.
They're local people. Canandaigua's a small town, small track. You know, it's too bad for him. Too bad for them. Too bad that it happened to Tony Stewart. Because if it was anyone else that had hit him, I don't even think he'd be asking me the same questions.
It looked to me as if it was two immature moves that cost the young man's life.
Two bad decisions.
Very sad.
Two very bad decisions.
Yeah. And my guess is he tried to throw some dirt on him, revved his wheels, the car came out from under him and unfortunately took him out. And it's very, very sad. Unfortunate all the way around for Tony, Mr. Ward, and all of us, you know, in racing. Sad.
Lots of different opinions, but one thing most people seem to agree on here today was that they were glad Stewart did not race today. He did come to Watkins Glen, but he pulled out of the race just a couple hours before it started. Don and Jenny?
All right. Hey, thank you, Rachel. I was watching the end of the race today on ESPN, and they were talking about that, whether there should be rules that say unless your life is in jeopardy, you don't get out of a vehicle, get on the track. So I'm sure it's going to prompt a lot of discussion about this.
Interesting to hear from the one fan who spoke to Rachel, saying it seemed to him two immature moves on the track that proved to be deadly. Still ahead, how long this string of sunny, warm days will last.
And of course, continuing coverage of the Stewart crash. Alexis Arnold reporting on the victim, what he accomplished in his short life.
And live from Watkins Glen, John Doss tells us how the crash is impacting drivers at today's race. There is a good deal of scrutiny today on race car driver Tony Stewart and his overall demeanor.
Yeah, we've been hearing a lot about this, and fans, expressing themselves on both sides of this.
Tony Stewart in racing is a polarizing figure. Some fans love him. Some fans do not love him. In recent years, we have seen incidents where drivers get out of their vehicles and have confrontations with other drivers on the track, and they show their displeasure with other drivers. That has happened several times. In fact, we have video from back in August of 2012, and this is Bristol, where Tony Stewart, upset with fellow driver Matt Kenseth, got out of his vehicle, waited for Kenseth to drive by, and threw his helmet at the vehicle. The view from inside Kenseth's car shows what this is like. Now, Tony Stewart's legend is twofold. There's the fiery competitor and the temper that he's shown on times like this. And that is what has happened at different times. Now, again, this incident, nothing connected with other incidents involving Tony Stewart. But a lot of fans, Don and Ginny, want to know, why was Tony Stewart at Canandaigua Raceway last night? And we would tell you this is Tony Stewart's way of racing. He is a multi-millionaire. He is a man who has accomplished a great deal in racing. He is also a guy who loves to go to the track. He has been quoted as saying, other guys go to the movies, I go to the track. In fact, we have video from a race that happened a year ago. It was in Iowa, and Tony Stewart racing in one of these sprint cars has an accident in which he suffered a broken leg. And this caused him to miss his regular NASCAR schedule. And he said afterward, this is who I am. People question why I do this. Tony Stewart goes to these type of races because he loves to race. So people wondering, why was he at Canandaigua Speedway last night, the night before a major race at Watkins Glen? I have to say, it's because that's who he is.
Is he unique in this, or other people?
Other guys drive. Other guys go to other tracks. This is a regular occurrence for Tony Stewart.
All right, thank you, Mike. Well, fans of Kevin Ward Jr. leaving flowers at the track today to remember the young driver who was struck and killed at Canandaigua Raceway just last night. And tonight we are gaining more insight into his young life.
Alexis Arnold here now with some of the accomplishments he achieved in a very short amount of time.
Well, we get a sense that the 20-year-old from Lyons Falls, it's a town about northeast of Syracuse, had racing in his blood since he was a young kid.
Kevin Ward Jr. was just 4 years old when he raced his go-kart at local and regional tracks. He took second place in his first race and went on to win 6 track championships. He then snagged 250 other wins in 8 years of go-kart racing. Heading into his teen years, Ward stepped it up, joining sprint races where he claimed multiple victories, including a championship. His most memorable moment came in 2011 when he won his first career sprint car win. After that, he was named Empire Super Sprint's Rookie of the Year. But it seemed this season got off to a slow start for Ward. His bio links to articles with headlines about the young driver battling bad luck and not catching a break. It seemed he and his crew were hoping to turn that around in Canandaigua.
And the racing world, a tight community. Whether drivers knew each other or not, many have taken to social media today to show their support for Ward Jr.'s family. We hear from Dale Earnhardt Jr., who tweeted, "We will all lose someone in our time, and when a loss is sudden and unexpected, the pain and sadness is suffocating. Prayers for the Ward family." Jimmy Johnson also tweeting, "Racing with a heavy heart today. Thoughts and prayers for the Ward family." We also hear on Twitter from Michael Waltrip. He says, "My thoughts and prayers are with the Ward family." And we hear from country music star Blake Shelton. "My God, man, I didn't know Kevin Ward, but I'm very sorry to hear about what happened. Thoughts and prayers to him and his family."
All right, thank you, Alexis. For that tight-knit race community, the sport continued today.
Yeah, the annual NASCAR race went on as scheduled at Watkins Glen without Tony Stewart behind the wheel. John Doss joining us now to tell us who won and what the winner had to say right away about last night's crash in Canandaigua. John?
Yeah, Don and Jenny, I know Rachel just hit on this, but the sun is shining. There's barely a cloud in the sky, yet a massive shadow cast over Watkins Glen International today because of what happened just about an hour up the road in Canandaigua late last night. There's one thing you got to know about the racing community. Its drivers, its fans are a very close-knit, loyal group of people. And I don't know how many drivers out there at Watkins Glen today had ever met Kevin Ward or even knew who he was before last night's tragedy on that dirt track in Canandaigua. But that didn't mean that his death wasn't felt out there on the track today in every car. And that was on display in Victory Lane as soon as race winner A.J. Allmendinger crossed the finish line.
First off, all of our condolences here at NASCAR, this whole NASCAR family, for the Ward family. Racing with heavy hearts today. I can't imagine what they're going through. So we're a community here. We're all thinking about you.
Yeah, guys, a difficult time for all parties involved and really for the racing community as a whole. It's not often you come to a place with 100,000 people and everybody knows the same story, certainly not as quickly as things have developed here in the last half or day or so. So the racing community, very tight-knit. This is something that's going to stick with them for quite a while. At Watkins Glen International, John Doss, 13 Wham Sports.
Now your planning forecast from the 13 Wham Weather Authority.
Well, just a fantastic end to this weekend here in the Flower City. HD Wham Cam showing an abundance of sunshine out there. Made it up to 82 degrees officially. This hour sitting at 80. We still have some of that hazy sun. Northeast wind, though, kept lakeshore communities a touch cooler. But the other number of people we're noticing today was dew point temperatures that are back into the low 60s. And that's going to stick around. High pressure is going to slowly exit, but keep us pretty clear tonight. Our next disturbance, area of low pressure back through the midsection of the nation, will come into play later Monday night into Tuesday and bring a big change to the overall weather pattern. Neighborhood forecast tomorrow morning, we'll start off with some more hazy sunshine. Temperatures already by midday near or into the lower 80s with a little more humidity. We're going to find readings probably up around 86 or 87 degrees here in the city, and this will likely be our last dry day with some of that sunshine. Beyond there, high pressure exits, and there this area of low pressure comes Monday night into Tuesday morning. Look at some of that rain. Could become steady to moderate at times Tuesday, maybe a ½ inch to 3/4 of an inch. Maybe some locally heavy rain will be possible. And slowly some of this will begin to wind out of here as we head through later Wednesday into Thursday, but it's going to signal a big change. Cooler weather is going to return. We're talking about the supermoon tonight. The full moon was actually at 2:10 this afternoon. It's the largest of this year. It's going to appear 14% larger and about 30% brighter, so get out and view that. Also, the Perseid meteor shower going on tonight and the next couple of nights. Through this evening, patchy clouds will fade. Temperatures will gradually pull back through the 70s. Tomorrow morning, dry start. More sunshine will climb out of the 60s into the 70s. And look at by the afternoon, 83 to 88. It's going to be warmer and a bit more humid. 7-day forecast shows there's our unsettled day on Tuesday. It'll be breezy as well, 75 degrees. Wednesday, that rain will taper. But look at that, only near 70 degrees. We'll highlight Thursday. Yeah, that's the start of the LPGA first round. Maybe just an isolated shower. But beyond there, Don and Ginny, talking about some dry weather, back to summer by next weekend for the final rounds, upper 70s to low 80s.
Yeah, this weekend was stellar.
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Picture perfect.
All right.
Yeah. All right, more on last night's crash coming up.
They did finish the race at Watkins Glen today despite a major crash. Mike will show us what happened.
13 Wham News, brought to you by Rochester Area Ford Dealers.
Now, 13 Wham Sports.
All right, despite the tragedy at Canandaigua Motorsports Park last night, the race at Watkins Glen, called the Cheez-It 355, did go on as scheduled. The way it works in NASCAR racing, it's the car that qualifies. So Tony Stewart's car, the number 14, was in the race. Backup driver Reagan Smith behind the wheel. Now, drivers were having issues with the conditions today of the track, and there was a big wreck here. Ryan Newman, Mike McDowell caused the first of 3 red flags. That's when they totally stopped the race. Several delays. This one about an hour. They had to get the debris off the track, fix the fence. After some of the delays, look at this, the drivers trying to stay loose, playing a little football. When it finally came to the end, we heard from him earlier, A.J. Allmendinger crosses the line as the winner of the race. That is his first career NASCAR race, and you heard him when John Doss spoke a little while ago, guys. His condolences for the racing community, for the family of the person who was killed last night, as they all had their mind with him.
All right, Mike.
And we'll be back.
Talking about temperatures dropping through the 70s into the 60s tonight. We have the super full moon out there. We got more sunshine tomorrow. It'll be warmer and more humid.
All right, Bills camp did continue today. Report on that tonight.
All right, Lexus Arnold here at 10 and 11 with more on this coverage
All
today.
right, thanks for watching. World News is next.
Oh, he hit
At a local racetrack, NASCAR legend Tony Stewart strikes and kills a competitor who approached him on foot on a Canandaigua racetrack.
Next thing we knew, all the cars were coming back into the pit. We knew it had to be bad then.
And now authorities are trying to piece together the moments before the accident that killed 20-year-old Kevin Ward Jr. The Ontario County Sheriff this afternoon said it does not appear there was criminal intent at the crash that killed Kevin Ward. 13 WHAM has team coverage. We begin with Toby Motika and the video that helped the Sheriff's Office make their decision.
Yeah, Alexis, let's start by setting this all up. This was the feature event at Canandaigua Motorsports Park last night. A group of regulars in the sprint car circuit joined by the NASCAR star on the track. Tony Stewart driving the number 14 car. Kevin Ward Jr. was driving the number 13 car. Let's show you what happened. And this is early in the video. You can see both cars, Ward and Stewart, jockeying for position through the turn. Stewart is inside Ward and appears to push him to the outside wall. Now, the video is going to remain focused on the 13 car. The race now under caution, so the other cars, including Stewart's, have slowed down and are now circling the track. But Ward, as you can see in just 1 second here, gets out of his car and begins heading towards the center of the track, clearly upset. Now, we are not going to show you the point of impact here, but after one car barely avoided him, Stewart clearly was making contact with Ward and threw him between 15 and 20 feet. Emergency personnel were attending to Ward on the track within seconds, but Ward was tragically pronounced dead on arrival at a local hospital. Now, Stewart stopped his cars a ways past and then, we're told by witnesses, drove through to the trailer where he was met by authorities. And then a few hours before today's race, Stewart decided not to run in today's cheese at 3:55 at the Glen. And then shortly after that, released this statement, quote, "There aren't words to describe the sadness I feel about the accident that took the life of Kevin Ward Jr. It's a very emotional time for all involved, and it is the reason I've decided not to participate in today's race at WGI. My thoughts and prayers are with his family, friends, and everyone affected by this tragedy." Alexis?
All right, Toby, thanks. We'll check back in with you in a bit. The Ontario County Sheriff says that at this point, there is no evidence that proves Tony Stewart purposefully ran over Kevin Ward, and he told us that investigators could use the help of witnesses at the scene.
Ontario County Sheriff Phil Poverel has an urgent request for the public.
That if there are persons hearing or seeing this message that have recorded a video of this crash or have firsthand knowledge of this crash, our investigators would like to reach out to you, retrieve this data, and conduct interviews.
That video could be key in this investigation, determining whether or not Tony Stewart is at fault and could face charges. For now, Sheriff Poverel says there is no evidence of criminal intent, but will continue to speak with Stewart.
He is extremely upset due to this crash, and has confirmed his continued cooperation in this investigation.
The sheriff's office is still waiting for autopsy results, and investigators are still working to reconstruct the crash scene, something they're looking to experts for to shed some light on what happened on this track on a dark Saturday night.
Individuals that know this type of racing from a long-time professional standpoint and can assist with a forensic analysis of the entire event.
And 13 WHAM's Jennifer Lee is live in Canandaigua. She spoke with a racer who was at the track last night. Jennifer, did he say if he thinks there is other witness video out there?
Alexis, as you said, that video is key. The racer we spoke with told us that everyone was told to put their phones and cameras away.
We knew all the cars were coming back into the pit. We knew it had to be bad then.
Racer Howard Washburn never got to touch the muddy track that Saturday. He was supposed to run after Tony Stewart and Kevin Ward Jr.'s race, but the fatal crash canceled his match.
The crowd actually gathered around behind Tony Stewart's trailer. People had camera phones out, trying to take videos, trying to take pictures. They made everybody put them away or they were going to confiscate them.
Investigators told us Stewart was visibly shaken up after the crash that killed 20-year-old Ward. Washburn gave his account of Stewart's state before the race.
He didn't seem to be in a bad mood or upset or nothing. Tony had just won the heat race that he was running. So he had to be feeling pretty good.
From the pit, Washburn couldn't see the crash, but he saw video of it after.
You don't get out of the car unless it's on fire. Rubbing is racing. You're going to get hit. You're going to run into somebody else. It's part of racing.
He's calling it unfortunate.
I mean, it's very sad to even lose any driver. Good, bad, whatever.
With a few exceptions, Washburn told us that he wants a regulation put in place, a safety regulation put in place, banning all drivers across all races from exiting their vehicles. Reporting live in Canandaigua, Jennifer Lee, 13 WHAM News.
All right, Jennifer, thanks. And we move right along to Cody Combs, who did speak with a fan who described the mood at the track as intense.
Alexis, I spoke with a race fan who says both Ward and Stewart were racing hard on this track most of the night. He described a very competitive mood to the race. He says this does happen from time to time. It all depends on the race and the drivers involved. Initially, he didn't think much of Ward getting out of his car because that sort of thing does happen when racers get frustrated. But this time, that decision by Ward was a deadly one.
Tony and Kevin were racing very, very hard with each other. The two of them got close, they made contact, and Kevin's car crashed into the outside wall. Soon after it came to a stop, Kevin got out of his car, visibly frustrated with Tony at the incident, waited for Tony's car to come around to show some sort of displeasure, either to point at him or whatever. And when Tony's car came around, it struck Kevin, and he was hit by the car and ended up lying motionless in turn two after being struck.
Now, I spoke off camera with one of the racers from last night when he stopped by the track today to reflect on things. He called this a terrible tragedy, but one that could have been avoided if Ward had not walked on the track. Of course, that's just one perspective to what unfolded last night. Alexis?
All right, Cody, thanks. And from one racetrack to another, that crash came just hours before Tony Stewart was set to race at Watkins Glen. Stewart pulled out 2 hours before that race began. Rachel Glazer here with fan reaction to that crash.
This is the kind of race NASCAR fans want to see. A lot of action, close finish, but all that excitement was clouded. What happened last night on that small dirt track in Canandaigua really cast a shadow over the big event here in Watkins Glen. Tony Stewart obviously did not race today. Car 14 noticeably absent from the track, but he was the one driver everyone was talking about, and opinions are really split over whether he intentionally sped up toward the other driver or if he just couldn't see him.
Canandaigua is a small town, small track. You know, it's too bad for him. It's too bad for them. Too bad that it happened to Tony Stewart, because if it was anyone else that had hit him, I don't even think you'd be asking me the same questions.
Looked to me as if it was two immature moves that cost a young man's life.
Two very bad decisions.
Yeah. And my guess is he tried to throw some dirt on him, revved his wheels, the car came out from under him and unfortunately took him out. And it's very, very sad. Unfortunate all the way around for Tony, Mr. Ward, and all of us, you know, in racing. Sad.
Now, the one thing most people did agree on is that they were glad Tony Stewart did not race today, given what happened last night. He did come down to Watkins Glen, but pulled out of the race just a couple hours before it started. In Watkins Glen, Rachel Glazer, 13 WHAM News at 10 on Fox Rochester.
Well, no doubt about it, just some fantastic weather here across the region this entire weekend, and Ultimate Doppler HD radar and satellite still this hour showing a cloudless sky and precipitation free, and that's some good news if you want to get out and view the supermoon. It was actually at its full phase at 2 p.m. this afternoon, but right now this evening it's appearing about 14% larger and 30% brighter, and numerous people posting on Facebook pictures of that, and just some spectacular views of that. But tomorrow morning, waking up to some more sunshine. That sunrise at 6:12 a.m. Temperatures will start off in the 60s, and look at by midday, we're already up near 80, 81 degrees. It's going to be a little bit more humid and still a dry day out there. Top temperature in the city expected up around 86 or 87 degrees. And we're going to check out when some rain and some cooler temperatures arrive in just a few minutes. Alexis?
Jeff, thanks. Coming up, a look into Tony Stewart's past. We'll tell you about this accident, another accident that happened a little over a year ago at the same track. Plus, we spoke with the winner of tonight's race. Hear what he has to say about Kevin Ward's death and why Tony Stewart keeps coming back to those smaller races. Last night's fatal crash was not Tony Stewart's first run-in at Canandaigua Motorsports Park. This is video of a serious accident that happened just a little over a year ago. Tony Stewart attempted to drive between these bunched-up race cars, causing a 15-car pileup. 19-year-old Alicia Ruggles, the driver Stewart bumped, broke her back in that accident. Stewart did take the blame for that accident. 13 WHAM's Toby Motika joins us now. Toby, the big question here is, why did Tony Stewart go to Canandaigua for these small types of races?
It's really a common question that's been asked, but it's really part of a bigger pattern for Tony Stewart. He's a 3-time Sprint Cup Series champion. He owns his own team, Stewart Haas Racing, and he has a net worth upwards of $70 million. So it's definitely a valid question. Why does Tony Stewart race these smaller races? To those who follow him closely, the fact that he was racing on this dirt track the night before an important NASCAR event doesn't come as a surprise at all, because this is the type of thing Tony Stewart does all the time, racing in these type of events with these sprint cars many times throughout a typical season. And it's actually around this time a year ago at a sprint car race in Iowa where Stewart's professional racing season ended. Stewart got into this wreck on August 6th, the same week as the Watkins Glen race last year, and broke both bones in his lower right leg. This accident that you see caused him to miss the final 15 races of last NASCAR season. Now, after that race, reporters were being the voice of the fans, asking Stewart why he continues to race outside of the NASCAR circuit. Stewart said in response, quote, "The thing is, you've got to live your life. We're all here a short amount of time in the big picture, and I'm going to take full advantage of the time I've got on this earth," end quote. He then made his return to the sprint car circuit just a few weeks ago, Alexis, with a car actually modified to be safer after last year's accident. But, of course, it could not prevent yesterday's tragedy.
All right, Toby, thanks. And we're also hearing from the family of Kevin Ward Jr. They live north of Utica in Lyons Falls. In a statement, the family says, quote, "We appreciate the prayers and support we are receiving from the community, but we need time to grieve and wrap our heads around all of this." And we're learning more about the victim, Kevin Ward Jr. We get a sense that the 20-year-old had racing in his blood since he was a kid. Ward was just 4 years old when he raced his go-kart at local tracks. And heading into his teen years, Ward stepped it up, joining sprint races where he claimed multiple victories, including a championship, and just 2 years ago was named Empire Super Sprint Rookie of the Year.
Well, we have some beautiful weather for a lot of astronomical events going on here tonight. We got the supermoon going on. The International Space Station just made a pass over Rochester within the last 10 minutes or so. And we have the Perseid meteor shower going on. This actually peaks on the 12th and 13th here, but you can view it the couple nights prior. Get away from the city lights. And this evening you can view up to about 100 meteors per hour. And with these clear skies, should be allowed to do that. Just have to watch for maybe that supermoon hindering it a little bit out there. Right now at the airport, 71 degrees. Dew point temperatures are climbing back up there. We've been in the upper 50s to near 60 this afternoon and this evening, and well, that's just an indicator of some unsettled weather that's going to be heading our way. High pressure in control right now, but low pressure taking shape back through the midsection of the nation, and this is going to bring us really a big pattern change as we head towards Monday night and Tuesday. But the neighborhood forecast for tomorrow shows we've got more sunshine, dry weather. Look at by the afternoon. It's going to be a little bit more humid, but with that hazy sunshine, I think in the city we're up around 86 or maybe 87 degrees. It's definitely going to be feeling a little bit more like August compared to where we have been. Forecast map shows high pressure exiting the region, but the clouds are going to fill in Monday night, and by Tuesday morning I think we're going to find a steady area-wide rain, and we're going to watch for the localized potential for some heavy rain, at least a ½ inch to maybe 3/4 of an inch of rain through the day Tuesday, and some of this activity will still be with us as we head into Wednesday before tapering off and cooler air settles miles. And then, but at least through the overnight, a bright moonlit sky, city low right around 62 degrees. Tomorrow morning, we'll start with some more sunshine. Temperatures will climb out of the 60s through the 70s, and we'll top out between 83 and 88 for your afternoon. Obviously, we'll continue with hazy sunshine and a little bit more humidity. 7-day forecast shows turning unsettled on Tuesday. The probability of rain about 85%, and it will be breezy. Wednesday, we'll find the shower risk gradually tapering, and then Alexis, the first round of the LPGA on Thursday. Maybe an isolated shower, looking mainly dry, and beyond there, no issues. Back to summer for the final rounds by next weekend. Upper 70s to low 80s then.
Yes, a lot of us are eyeing that day later in the week for
definitely.
LPGA. All right, thanks, Jeff. Coming up, a close call for a news crew in Gaza. And in sports, the show must go on at Watkins Glen International. We'll show you who took the checkered flag. Some other news now. Close-up footage of an explosion in Gaza. It happened while a news crew was recording that airstrike, sent CNN reporter Martin Savage diving to the floor. Scary moments there. A second blast follows shortly after. Israel and Hamas have agreed to another 72-hour ceasefire. It will begin at midnight. We are going to go back to Toby Motika now, joining us for more on the big race at Watkins Glen. What can you tell us about the mood at the race today?
The mood at the racetrack was just that. It was a race. There was a cloud indeed hanging over Watkins Glen International today following the tragic death of Kevin Ward Jr. Saturday night. Tony Stewart, of course, deciding not to race the road course today in light of yesterday's events. But the race did go on, and it was Regan Smith from Cato, New York, who drove Stewart's 14 car in his place. Smith, though, would finish 37th. Pole sitter Jeff Gordon in the 24 really established himself early, but on lap 50 loses power. Just had to move over and let everyone go by. Gordon, who's won 4 times at the Glen, ended up finishing 34th. Lap 56, Ryan Newman off the wall, back onto the track, into Michael McDonald, who goes into the other wall. This was a big wreck. Folks starting to bring up safety concerns about Watkins Glen. The red flag would come out as they had to repair the whole fence. The race was delayed more than an hour, but the guys, hey, literally passed the time. Just 2 laps to go now after another red flag. A.J. Allmendinger and Marcos Ambrose jockeyed back and forth, but in the end, it would be A.J. Allmendinger, not the road course ringer Marcos Ambrose, who won the battle. And Allmendinger takes the checkered flag at Watkins Glen International. You see him here ahead of Ambrose and Kurt Busch, followed by Kyle Larson, Carl Edwards, and Joey Logano. But after the race, when the celebration ended, attention shifted back to Saturday's tragedy. With reaction from the drivers at the Glen, here's John Doss.
Yeah, you know, the road race here at Watkins Glen International is always one that's looked forward to on the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series, but today, a noticeable shift in mood. Now, I don't know how many drivers out here at Watkins Glen ever met Kevin Ward or even knew who he was before last night's tragedy, but that certainly didn't mean that his death on that dirt track in Canandaigua wasn't felt out here on this track today.
It's a tough time for everybody. You know, I said on TV after the race, you know, this NASCAR community, we're, you know, as a whole, we're a family. And when anything like that happens, it's something that you don't just kind of erase and you forget about.
Yeah, you know, you want everybody to go to the racetrack, have fun, and enjoy what they're doing, and go home safe. And sometimes it just isn't meant to be. And you know, so my thoughts and prayers go out to the family.
I look forward to hearing Tony's remarks whenever he feels it's time to talk, and just feel for the family, feel for everybody involved. I mean, it's not an easy situation at all.
Yeah, guys, so certainly a difficult time for everybody involved and for the entire racing family. It's not often that you come to a place with 100,000 people and everybody knows a story and everybody has an opinion on that story. Certainly not as quickly as things have turned here. The racing family, certainly a tight-knit one, and this is going to stick with them for quite some time. Reporting from Watkins Glen, John Dust, 13 WHAM Sports at 10 on Fox Rochester.
All right, thank you very much, John. We're going to move on now. Tomorrow, the ladies of the LPGA arrive for one more go. Practice round set to begin for the final Wegmans LPGA Championship on Monday. The first round, of course, tees off on Thursday. As for the PGA Championship, this thing went right up until sundown. But look who's on top yet again. Rory McIlroy getting it done. His 3rd straight win, 2nd straight major, 4th overall. He had to come from behind to win this thing after he just dominated the first 3 days. And just when it looked like he was going to slip away, Rory came roaring back on the back nine to win yet another major championship. This guy is having one of the best 3-week runs you will ever see on the PGA Tour and is the unquestioned #1 in the world of golf.
All right, we got to scoot. We'll be right back.